Good afternoon, Charles. How are you?
Good afternoon, Dan. I'm well. How are you?
Better now.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So what's new?
What's new? Let's see. Well, I just want to throw a shout out to my buddy Mike, who has been listening to us for a while now, and I've known him since junior high.
Dan, if we call out every listener, we'll be here for 2 minutes.
2 minutes well spent. Okay.
You're right.
Yeah. So first of all, happy birthday, Mike! And I just got off the phone with him a couple days ago, and he won his bowling tournament. So yeah, he was super excited about that. And
Did I meet
so
Mike
happy.
at Disney?
No, that was my buddy. That was my buddy Jason. So
Jason,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. Mike is the one who was we consulted for the video studio. Yep. So Mike, congratulations and thanks for listening and being a fan. We appreciate it for sure. So it was great to catch up with him.
Okay. What else you got going on?
What else do I got?
You were in New Jersey.
I was in New Jersey. Yep, I was in New Jersey. Got to see my buddies Ramsey and Kareem and a couple other fraternity brothers. Went to a Rutgers game where they actually won.
Whoa.
Yeah, kind of crazy. And the last time I went to a Rutgers game, it was the same coach, Greg Schiano. So that was many moons ago, and I had really not been following them much. And Schiano went off and did other things. He came back, and things are looking pretty good. But we've got Michigan next week in Michigan, so that's going to be a problem.
Yes,
I believe it will be. But it was a great time. Thanks to Ramsey and Kareem for awesome tailgate, and Bob and Pete also, they cooked up a mean steak and sausage and ribs and everything, and they do it every week, and it's a thankless job. There's a lot of work involved for them that they a lot of times people kind of show up and just throw some cash and not actually do some work, and that makes things difficult, but they've been holding it down. I mean, since I graduated, so I graduated in 98, so do the math. They've been doing it for years, so had a great time in New Jersey doing that, and had a nice little dinner with the family as well on Sunday night. So
nice.
Yeah, how about you? What'd you get up to?
I was up in New York City doing some touristing. I visited the Feast of San Gennaro in Little Italy.
Oh, and what did we feast on?
Mostly desserts.
Yeah.
I had my possibly favorite dessert anywhere ever, which is tough to say because Disney comes out with a lot of great desserts that I enjoy a lot, but the pistachio cheesecake at Cannoli King,
wow,
is pretty amazing.
Was that in cannoli form?
No, it's an actual cheesecake.
Okay,
and they're the Cannoli King, but because pistachio cheesecake king would be cheesecake. Yeah, cheesecake. I thought it said cheesesteak. Pistachio cheesecake king would be too big for the sign, so they just go by Cannoli King, but they make other amazing desserts. And I did have a cannoli. I had a hazelnut cannoli with my pistachio cheesecake. Yeah. And I met Renata there for a meal, and she ate hardly any of the dessert, and I had to eat all of it pretty much on my own. And then I also had a Italian panini with like ham and prosciutto and black olives and lettuce and the oil and vinegar.
So I'm going to need to ask, I know you do have a lot of experience at Cheesecake Factory. Have they ever done a pistachio cheesecake?
Not to my knowledge. I've never had one there.
Okay.
So I
was curious if there's any sort of comparison you could make, but
it would probably be pretty. I mean, they make pretty much the best version of every cheesecake they've made there that I've had.
Ridiculous.
Has been the best version of that cheesecake. I was a big fan of their Dutch apple cheesecake. That's really good.
Oh.
Yeah, where it's like a Dutch apple pie plus cheesecake. Around this time of year, they have, or at least have had in the past, a combination pumpkin pie cheesecake and pecan pie all in one dessert, where it's like one layer of pecan pie at the bottom and then pumpkin pie cheesecake on top of that.
Who are these evil geniuses coming up with this? Unbelievable. Wow.
The big choice at Thanksgiving is often, do I get the pecan pie or do I get the pumpkin pie? And so they've put it together into one dessert, and it tastes amazing.
They are just solving the problems of the world. I mean, these decisions are difficult.
Let's see. What else do I love at Cheesecake Factory? They had a wild blueberry white chocolate cheesecake a few years ago that was amazing.
Wow. Okay.
Their banana cream pie cheesecake.
All right, really back to San Gennaro. Okay, so let's, yeah.
I could go for an hour.
I needed to cut it off there before we start naming all the cheesecakes. Yeah.
It it would end up with me at Cheesecake Factory tonight. That's where that road leads. Which I've been since New York. I've been very, very compliant on my eating plan to try to make up for it. And as always, it's like a few days and the results just come right back. I mean, when you eat all that bad food and retain all that water, it really only takes 3 or 4 days of doing the right thing for literally pounds. Like I've probably lost half a dozen pounds since I was up in New York.
Fantastic. That's awesome.
It just falls off when I wish I could lose weight at that rate all the time, but it's like 5 days from now, after I've been eating good for 5 days, then I'll be back to fighting for every single ounce to on my way down to my goal. But for right now, things are going real easy, and I like that.
How close are you to your goal?
I reckon I'm about 8 or 9 pounds away.
Okay.
Yeah, I think 8 or 9 pounds, and then I'll be able to switch to maintenance mode.
Okay.
So we'll see.
Right.
I mean, my goal is more visual than it is a number on the scale.
Right. Yeah.
So
it's kind of estimating.
Yeah, but I'm estimating that for me at 5'8", I think 155 is going to be where I need to go.
Okay.
And right now, I'm in the neighborhood of 163.
All right.
Yeah. So we'll see how it goes. I'm traveling again this weekend. Going to check out some sites and some zoos up in the let's see, what do you call Minnesota? What region is that? Is that the Midwest? I guess it would be Midwest.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to go up to Minneapolis and going to bring Keto Chow with me and a blender bottle with me and try to stick to the plan. Because I've noticed that going on vacation is definitely an issue for me.
Absolutely.
Like, I was texting with Rob today, and he's like, nobody eats lettuce on vacation. he's right.
Absolutely no. Right. And that's why it is
to not go on vacation every week, though. That's where you get into trouble.
That's where you're making the mistake, right? Yeah. Is going that vacation every week, right?
Yeah. And I've got 3 weekends here where I am hopping on a plane. Although, to be fair, so this weekend's Minnesota. Next weekend, I'm going back up to New York City for the express purpose of doing a 30-mile, 12-hour hike. So I'm not quite going to be at the risk of eating a bunch of bad food
right
in next weekend, because I fly into New York on Saturday morning, check into my hotel Saturday afternoon, have to be on the course at 6 a.m. Sunday morning, walk till 6 p.m. Sunday night, and then get on a plane Monday night back to Florida.
Okay.
So
you're not going to have a lot of time.
There will be some time for mistakes to be made, but not a ton of time. I don't think I'm going to pack my my shakes on that trip. I think I'm just going to try to stick to my hard-boiled eggs and my diner breakfast, good omelets and protein boxes from Starbucks, and then I will indulge in some trail mix on the 30-mile hike and feel good about it.
You'll burn that right off. So
I would think so. Yeah. The bag of trail mix is 1,500 calories, though.
That's not bad. I mean, but you're going to be burning probably close to that, if not more.
I burn
30-mile hike.
Yeah, I'll burn way more than that, because when I go to Disney and I do a really long walk on purpose. Yeah. At least according to my Apple Watch, 2.5, 3 hours is good for 500 calories.
Yeah.
And I'll be doing 12 hours.
Wow.
So yeah, that's going to be that could be a 6,000 calorie burn, just that workout.
Yeah. So
not counting my base metabolic rate and all that stuff. So.
Yeah. You don't have to pack your guilt with you. You can leave that one at home.
I will leave that at home.
Yeah.
Picked up my new fanny pack today for the hike.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's fancy. It's real fancy. I'm going to have a hard time keeping the ladies away.
Looks like you could put a lot of junk in that trunk.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's like, like that picture of The Rock where he's wearing the one, and then is that really the 90s picture where he's got like the black.
Yeah.
Like that, but way cooler.
Okay.
Yeah. It's bright blue with like flames on it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And it
help you zip
through
that course, that the flames.
Like a backpack.
Right. Okay.
Like a jetpack.
Yes.
Remember when those were right around the corner back in the 80s where we thought any day now we're going to get our jetpacks? Never materialized.
Well, hoverboards too. I mean, that took a while.
No joke. Yeah. But now the hoverboards that they sell have wheels on them. Those aren't what they had in Back to the Future in 2015.
Oh, no.
Yeah, 2015, right? That's when he traveled to?
Yeah.
Yeah, God.
I think so, right?
it was 2015. In the first one, he went from 85 back 30 years to 55, and in the second one, he went forward 30 years to 2015.
That's nuts.
Oh yeah,
man.
when you look at the memes about if Back to the Future happened today, Marty would go back to the year 1993.
That's the year I graduated high school, man.
Wow, yeah, that's a couple years before me, but 1993, like I was a person walking around having thoughts and opinions.
Oh, I was driving a car.
That's nuts.
And it was not like a George Jetson car, which
no, we've definitely gotten screwed on that deal. I was listening to one podcast host where he's like, our technology has not gone in the direction anybody expected it to, where it's basically life now is like Star Trek, but only when it comes to computers. Everything else is pretty much the same as it's been for the last 50 years, except for our computers. Our computers now are more sophisticated than they had on Star Trek The Next Generation.
Right.
But everything else is pretty much the same as it was in the 60s.
Interesting. Kind of got that wrong. Yeah.
Yeah, other than flat screen TVs, but that falls in the category of that's been driven by computers.
Right.
I mean, everything that's been driven by computers and silicone chips and microprocessors is doing great. Everything else, it still takes the same amount of time to fly to LA now as it did in 1959.
Yeah, that's interesting. Why haven't we gotten, I guess maybe it's just the sonic booms, right? That's the issue, right? We haven't solved that problem because we had the supersonic jets. And
the Concorde.
I thought what happened was it was just too noisy.
It was noisy. That was part of it. And I was reading about the Concorde actually on the flight home this last weekend. They had a hard time selling enough seats because there weren't that many people that were willing to pay that much of a premium to go from London to New York that quickly. So that was part of it.
Oh.
Fuel consumption was a big deal. I mean, it went through, airline jet fuel really quick. But yeah, I guess they just, the sonic booms are a factor too. Although I would think that like coastal airports, they might figure out a way to route it so that the boom's happening over the ocean instead of
right.
And a lot of people in the United States live on either the eastern seaboard or the West Coast.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is disappointing though. I mean, I was telling you the other day I was on a United flight. I was complaining at first because the check-in process when you fly super duper cheap steerage economy like I do, you have to talk to a real person before you can get on the plane, which blows my mind. Like I have to talk to a human being. I can't just check in on my app.
You'd think there'd be an upcharge.
It would be the opposite, yeah.
Because that for years,
to a teller at the bank, you have to pay extra.
Same thing. I remember, I think it was like Delta or JetBlue, whatever. If you needed to talk to somebody on the phone, they would charge you $25 to change your flight reservation.
Yeah, or if you had to talk to them at the airport.
And you had to make the case. Your website's not working. I need to talk to somebody, right. And that was Yeah,
but on United, if you are flying if you buy the cheapest ticket and you don't have a bag to check, so you're not paying to carry on and you're not paying to check, you're just saying, hey, I got a small backpack, I'll throw it into the seat in front of me. You've got to meet with a United staff member who looks at your backpack and makes sure that it's small enough to go into the seat.
They don't trust you.
They do not.
They don't trust you.
And I'm sure there's a reason. I'm sure people are,
all the time.
I see people trying to sneak on personal items that are freaking huge duffel bags. But Frontier got in trouble because they pay their gate agents a bounty. So if you catch somebody with a bag that's too big and they have to pay $50 to change it from a personal item to a carry-on, the gate agent gets $10 of that. So now all the gate agents, have their reading glasses on looking for people trying to cheat the system.
And they got in trouble for that? Why'd they get in trouble for that?
Bad PR. I mean, it's basically, you're putting
for enforcing rules?
Yes. Yeah, we frown on that in this society.
Oof, clearly. You just tell me about that with the the senator.
Yeah, I certainly frown on rules when people try to apply them to me. So I get where folks are coming from.
Yeah, but I mean,
no.
It'd be different if it was hidden, and it's like surprise.
I do like.
Here's our rule.
I have seen a lot of signs in grocery stores now that they're starting to deal with dogs in grocery stores because a lot of people were just bringing their service animals are okay.
Sure,
but a lot of people were like, oh well, dogs are allowed, so I'm bringing my dog, and people would just bring their pet dogs who didn't know how to act, didn't know how to behave, weren't trained. A lot of barking, a lot of pooping and peeing in the aisles. And
well, I mean, that's always been the way it is at Petco and stuff like that. That's not a problem, but
that's true.
I haven't seen this in actual like real supermarkets.
It's mostly people with tiny dogs that I've seen in supermarkets, like the kind that you could fit in a purse or
right?
in your
Well, just
arms.
poop in the purse. Open up the change pouch and just let them take a dump in there. Those little things, you know.
I still don't want. I mean, when a dog gets that small, it's basically vermin. It's basically a pest, as far as I'm concerned. I like big dogs, and so when I see people with tiny dogs, I'm like, does that have a bubonic plague? I don't like it.
They tend to be a little bit aggressive, a little bit mean, from my experience. So they're not like a very welcoming type of.
Well, yeah, because everything could kill them.
Right.
I would be nervous too.
Right. It just spreads anxiety. You see this thing like shaking, you're just shaking and screaming at and barking at. Yeah, that's. I don't need that. I got enough of that to deal with.
The one exception has been Jack Russells. Everybody I know with a Jack Russell,
they
act like big dogs.
Okay. Yeah.
But
my dad had a Jack Russell for a while.
Did it know how to act?
It did, but he didn't carry it in his purse.
Okay,
so,
well, that's good.
Yeah, but he had a little attitude for sure.
Your dad or the dog?
Yes.
Okay, fair enough.
Love you, Dad.
All right, so let's get into the material here. We are 16 minutes in, so I guess it's time to talk about this book.
Let's talk about it.
So this is timely because I read a meditation today in one of the books I try to read on a daily basis that talks about codependence, or as we most often refer to it on this podcast as the nice guy syndrome.
Yeah.
And those are pretty much the same thing. It talked about spontaneity and how people who struggle with codependence or struggle with the nice guy syndrome, they're so concerned about controlling the reactions to what they say and do that they don't feel the freedom to just be spontaneous, have fun, say what pops into their mind, blurt, as Dr. Robert Glover says, when you're interacting with people and a funny thought comes to mind, just say it and see what happens. and
throw it out there.
Yeah, throw it out there. And this chapter is called "Don't Play It Safe." The quote is, "A ship in port is safe, but that's not what ships are built for." And the real downside to it that as men we don't often consider is playing it safe, trying to, thinking, okay, I better not tell that joke. I better not make that reference. I better not step on her toes because you're worried about a girl not liking you is what makes you boring. And boring is often the worst thing you can do when it comes to building attraction. I mean, even being a jerk in many cases is a better option than being boring, because if you're boring, you're not interesting.
Yeah. And I mean, the other thing, the way I was taking it is not just that you would be boring, but I think more that you're going to be something that you're not. Like if you want to say or do something and you don't because you're concerned about somebody else's reaction, you're kind of hiding and changing who you are a little bit on some level. And then you start to become a little bit an unknown quantity.
Right.
And people start to go, well, wait a minute, like who is this person?
Yeah.
And then you start, I feel like that, like a lot of things in life, tends to lead to a habit where you might start to feel comfortable changing the way you're behaving based on the situation and other people's reactions. And now this little one-off issue or incident is turned into a habit, and now you're really kind of masking who you are. And then people see different sides of you and pieces of you. Oh, I thought he was kind of like this. Well, no, he's acting like this now. And that then builds a little bit of like, well, I think anxiety and untrustworthiness, if that's even a word, from other people. And that's also part of the nice guy syndrome too, right?
Well, yeah, that's what I was going to say. You, if you do that long enough and you decide it's kind of working good enough for me for long enough, then yeah, that becomes who you are. You become that chameleon who just, does and says what he thinks he needs to do and say in every situation. And that does great on people. People lose enthusiasm for that pretty quickly.
Yeah, and I know why people do it, and I know why I used to do it is because you feel like you're going to get ostracized from the tribe. Our primitive brain has some anxiety, thinking, "Hey, if I don't make sure everybody likes me, then I could be kicked out of the tribe, and I'm not going to survive out in the wilderness on my own. I need to be part of this group. And it's difficult, but we have to use, our more evolved brain to kind of temper those emotions a little bit and those feelings and go, okay, look, I'm not going to die here. If I don't say the exact right thing and I'm, not overly concerned about everybody else. But so I can see how it's a default feeling for a lot of people to do that. Right.
Yeah. Brene Brown has an amazing quote that, I just saw on an Instagram clip recently, but I've heard her say it before, which is the polar opposite of belonging is fitting in. Where belonging is when you feel like you have a real connection to the people around you and you're part of the community, you're part of the group.
Yeah.
Fitting in is when you do what you have to do to get the feeling of belonging.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
Everything she says is gold.
Yeah.
So I love her. She's one of
but very appropriate here.
Yes.
That fits nicely.
Yeah, absolutely. And so
belongs nicely. Yeah.
I think both are okay. So
yeah.
So the man who is so concerned in both his professional and his personal life with, I can't say or do anything that could cause anxiety or could cause people to be mad at me or cause people to think I'm not the greatest guy in the room.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, whenever you start adopting that mindset of what do I have to do to get X from people?
It's manipulation.
It's dishonest, and it leads you down the path of not being yourself, and so not being attractive, trustworthy, considered a person of value. I mean, it leads to a dark road that doesn't go anywhere pleasant.
Yeah, and I think it also leads to feeling like if I am myself, it's wrong, or there's something wrong with me if I'm going to express how I really feel because I'm in the habit of squashing that and not expressing that. And I think part of our brain will go, well, I'm not doing that because if I do that, there's going to be consequences. And when that happens now, you're under this feeling, well, who I really am isn't good, isn't something that I should be okay expressing. And now you're starting to feel like crap about yourself because you feel like there's something internally wrong with you because you've been behaving in a way that is suppressing who you are. And so part of your brain's like, yeah, I shouldn't be talking about this or that because that's who I am. And so wow, it really can mess you up.
Yeah, it's like
I'm thinking about it.
It's like it's like having a really nice pair of shoes or boots that you've never taken the time to break in. So when you do put them on, you're like, oh, this doesn't feel right. Where the problem's not the boot, the problem is your lack of effort getting your feet and your boots to love each other.
Yeah, right. Feet and boots.
Perhaps not the most beautiful metaphor I've come up with in our 90.
But you know what? It's you, and you put it out there, and blurting or not, I think it's good.
Yes, I do not care what the 28 people listening to this podcast think of my.
Ooh, we're up to 28. Oh, wow.
All right, let's talk about this wacky case study in this chapter.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let me set the scene here. A couple is at dinner, and the man in the couple informs his, I guess, girlfriend, maybe just girl that he's dating. I don't know that it lays it out, but he informs her that he is going to be buying a vintage Mustang to restore himself. And he's excited about it. He's enthusiastic about it. And she thinks that it's a dumb idea. And she tells him that it's a dumb idea. She asks him a lot of leading questions that really communicates that she thinks it's a dumb idea. And eventually she says things like, I can't believe I'm dating an idiot. It's stupid. And then she calls him an idiot. Which, right now, full stop. You don't tolerate behavior like that from other people, whether it's in public or in private. And so he decides, or doesn't decide, just as functioning on autopilot, he reacts to that by reaching across the table, knocking her glass of wine over so that it spills on the table and into her lap. And then he proclaims, that's for being a bitch. And he
walks out, right?
Yeah, I believe he does.
I mean, who's paying the bill here?
No, she ran out, not him.
Oh,
She ran.
she ran out. Okay.
Rick didn't care. He was only too happy to get rid of her.
Yeah.
Now listen. So
Okay.
again, my issue over and over again with this author is not just what he says, but what he chooses to include in his book. So let's look at what so basically this guy does this to her. She calls him names. He spills wine on her. She runs out crying.
Yeah.
Then he basically doesn't reach out to her. And she starts thinking, well, at least he wasn't weak like my ex-boyfriend, because I called him an idiot all the time, and his reaction was to apologize. And so then she picks up the phone and calls Rick because she misses him, and yada, yada, yada. So listen, both of these people should die in a house fire. I would not be friends with these people.
Right.
I would not continue considering them family if for some unfortunate reason I was born into one with them.
Yeah.
I would certainly not date either of them. And I have a hard time trying to find something to glean of use from this case study at all.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like it's just a really extreme, unrealistic example of how to be opposite from a nice guy. I think that's what he's going for.
But
and he's getting some shock value out
That brings up the age-old question: is the opposite of a nice guy an asshole or an integrated, grounded man?
Right.
You know, I would say, this is a guy who has a similar set of mental and emotional problems as a nice guy. They're just manifesting themselves in a dramatically different way. You don't throw glasses of wine on people.
Well, he didn't. He just spilled it.
He pushed it over on purpose, aiming it for her.
Yeah.
And that's just not a way you behave. That's just that's not.
No.
When I think of somebody who has emotions that they're in control of, I mean, if that's a thought out and deliberate thing where you've weighed all of your options in your mind and you've decided this is the best thing to do, then you're a psycho.
Yeah.
And if you are just doing it as a reaction, then you're a toddler. I mean, there's no
Yeah, it's I agree. I mean, if somebody's going to call me if my girlfriend calls me an idiot for doing something with my own money that I want to do, I break up with her. It's not I don't push wine on her
for any reason, pretty much.
Right.
It's I stay
unless you're joking.
I say enjoy your dinner and I walk out.
Right. Yeah.
Listen, it's up to her to try to make amends for it down the road.
Yeah.
But that's getting up and walking away after you've been called a name is a far cry from spilling a drink on someone.
Oh yeah.
They run out crying.
Oh, absolutely. Look, yeah, I absolutely. He definitely could have made the point of the fact, well, you know what? Somebody who's not behaving in this nice guy tendency sticks up for himself. And here's a way of doing that is you don't tolerate somebody calling you an idiot for doing something that you want to do with your own money, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, even if he had said, you know, I've taken that $15,000 you asked me to invest and I bought a vintage Mustang that I'm going to fix up for you, even then I wouldn't say it's okay for her to call him an idiot, even though it's something that will dramatically affect her. But it's because
that's a trigger word. I mean,
exactly.
There's no
names. Why? What is the upside to calling people names?
Right.
There is none.
Right. It's just both of them are acting childish in this.
Extremely childish
in this situation.
And again, I shudder to think that a single person finds himself in this situation and remembers reading Atomic Attraction by Christopher Canwell and decides, oh, I'll do what Rick did.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not putting all the blame on that on the author, obviously. People are allowed to write stories and case studies about whatever nonsense they want to.
Yeah.
And everybody's responsible for their own actions. But yeah, I mean, you're putting this out there and making it seem as if
this is proper
he's the good guy in the story. And he's not. There are no good guys in this story.
Yeah.
She calls him an idiot. He spills wine. He calls her a bitch. I mean, these are terrible, terrible people. Yep. And I could learn a lot more from this made-up story if I wasn't so distracted by how terrible the characters are. You know what I mean?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I think that horse has been sufficiently beaten to death. Yeah. So he does say at one point that women need to feel their emotions because emotions are the centerpiece of a woman's life. Listen, I'm not a guy who is going to, by any stretch of the imagination, sit here and say, well, men and women, you know, biologically and culturally, they're pretty much the same. There's no difference. No, there's big differences between men and women, but emotions are the centerpiece of our lives as well. We just experience them in a different way on average than women do. So, you know, to say that the opposite of what he's saying here would be, you know, the centerpiece of a woman's life is her emotions, and the centerpiece of a man's life is his logic. In my experience, that's horseshit.
Yeah. I mean, it's right. Now, I think the difference really is what he's trying to say, and what we've heard a lot is that what men do with our emotions is we want to calm them down, right? And so we want to quell any sense of anxiety or people being upset. As men, we have a tendency to want to keep like calm and peace. And I think the point he's trying to make is that that's not necessarily going to build attraction if everything's calm and peaceful. And there are, you know, good emotions that can be created and generated and fostered in men-women relationships to foster that attraction, right? And build that attraction. And it doesn't always have to be these negative things, you know?
Yes. What I would say in particular kills attraction in women is when men decide to act in a way to quell their emotions and sort of tamp them down. Like whether it's emotions we consider to be positive or negative or whatever, you know, anytime that you feel the woman in your life is too excitable or too upset or too angry and you, instead of addressing the root cause of what's going on with her, you're like, we need to take these emotions down a level. That is what kills attraction.
Or maybe just providing a safe space to let her express those emotions.
Well, that's exactly what needs to be done.
Right.
And that will not kill attraction.
Right. Exactly. That's the other option.
But
right?
trying to throw a fire blanket on top of the emotions and thinking that there's not going to be a price to pay, there absolutely is. Yeah. I mean, the more... Yes, women are feeling creatures.
I know.
The more you say, I'm uncomfortable with you being a feeling creature, so I'm going to try to push that down as much as I can. That is a recipe for disaster.
The other way, you know, I've gotten in trouble with this is because I like to fix problems, and I actually feel valued when I can solve problems.
Yeah.
When there's like this upset, this, you know, emotional reaction in anybody, of course I want to quell that. I want to fix it. I want them to feel better. I want to solve that problem, right? And so it's very difficult for me and a lot of guys who are of that, you know, Mr. Fix-It problem solving type of nature. It's us caring and showing that we care because we want that other person to not be upset or not feel bad. And it definitely takes some work and effort on my part to recognize, hey, look, you know, obviously sometimes things do need to be fixed, right? There are emergencies, right? Yeah. But understanding where that boundary is and what, you know, where it is, you don't need to, because you're feeling anxious or you're sensing, you know, that this person's anxious and upset. You don't need to fix that. Just let that exist and not stick your nose in and try to fix it.
Right. Not treat other people's, particularly women's, but really just any other people's emotions as if, like for me, I spent a week online years ago learning how to solve Rubik's Cubes.
Okay, cool.
And not that cool. And if I
don't know, have you seen some of those, how quick they do that? That is cool. That's freaking impressive, man.
The speed ones are. I'm not that fast, but were I to walk into this room right now and see a 5-gallon bucket full of mixed up Rubik's Cubes, my instinct would be, I've got to get all those right. I've got to set them all to the right colors.
Yeah, yeah.
And that is not the approach to take to your wife or girlfriend's emotions. Where you see, I walked in and this is making me uncomfortable. This feels a little bit messy. So I need to fix this so she doesn't feel it anymore. And I think that's what he's getting at. I just, I have some issues with the way he chooses to say it, but if you make it your mission to stop everybody in your life from feeling any anxiety, any anger, any jealousy, I mean, make it your mission in life to be a good man and treat people well, but don't make it your mission in life to manage other people's emotions and experiences so you can feel more comfortable with your own life.
Right. Well, or so you can feel more comfortable in that situation. So that kind of all ties back into what we've been talking about for the podcast in terms of doing your own mindfulness work, bringing down your own anxiety level through exercise and journaling and meditation and all these things so that you have the capacity to then just exist in the midst of other people having a lot of high tension and a lot of emotion. If your anxiety level is up, you're not going to be able to tolerate that, right? Your cup then is almost full. Somebody acts, puts a little bit more into that cup. It doesn't take much. And all of a sudden you're upset and you need to solve it and you need to fix it because you need to feel better. But if you've done your work and you're walking around from a calm, cool, collected type of framework, you can deal with a little bit of anxiety and emotions and things from people in your environment around you and don't need to necessarily go out and fix it because you're no longer overflowing at this point in emotions, right?
Right. And I was just thinking, for me, a lot of the time to understand concepts like this, it helps me to think of the most extreme example and talk it out as a thought experiment. So imagine your girlfriend's grandmother died and you go to the funeral with her and everybody's crying. And like most guys, crying probably makes you uncomfortable, whether it's your crying or somebody else's crying, it puts you on edge. It does me. And so to fix that, to soothe your anxiety, you just start going up to people and saying, "Hey, could you please stop crying? This is making me very uncomfortable. What can I do to make you feel better right now so you stop crying?"
Yeah, that's not.
That would be an insane thing to do, right? And that would be unhelpful. It would hurt them. It would hurt your relationship with them. It would hurt your closeness. It would destroy connection to do that. And so imagine doing that at 100th of that level on a daily basis when your wife or girlfriend is just experiencing her emotions and you're very subtly trying to, let's fix this so I don't have to see this anymore.
That extreme example really kind of drove home something and made me think of it in another way. It's by doing that, you're controlling. You are acting as, and so now that's
what the nice guy codependent does. He tries to control because.
Yeah. And I never really thought about it like that, but yeah, it's a form of trying to control the other person, and humans don't like that.
Look, I don't think I'm speaking for just myself when I say a crying woman feels like chaos to me, and it makes me uncomfortable, regardless of whether it's anything I did or something somebody else did.
We're pre-wired that way, of course.
Yes,
from babies crying, right. It activates something in humans. So yeah, we're sensitive to that. Sure.
And I think there is something about, whether it's the male brain or testosterone or whatever, when most of us who live our lives, at least in the traditional masculine gender role, when we're confronted with chaos, we want to bring order. Mm-hmm. And that's, that's how you get Darth Vader. Right. It's what happens when you have not either had the upbringing or done the work or whatever, and you see a situation that's chaotic. You're going to use as heavy a hand as you need to bring order to that situation, to soothe your own anxiety over, I don't know what's going to happen next.
Yeah.
And, bringing that into the relationship with your wife or girlfriend is not a recipe for success.
Is not.
It's let her feel her feelings, ask her about what's going on, try to help, get to the bottom of what's causing, but get to the bottom of hearing what's causing it, but not necessarily fixing it.
Yeah, the first step is being able to manage your own feelings, and that's a journey that I'm on. Is making sure that I'm as much in a state of being able to manage my own emotions, my own feelings, because there's no chance I'm going to be able to handle extra stuff if I'm not able, and I don't even have this, if I don't have the skill set of and the tools to know how to manage my emotions, then I'm not going to be good at using the tools to handle other emotional situations. So let's get good at practicing and using the tools that and the methods to handle emotions, and start there.
Yeah, and I mean, the first step in that is something we've talked about before recently and a while ago, which is you got to be able to label your feelings. If you want to be able to do anything to understand them, change them, manage them, you got to be able to put a word on what's going on in your head. And we've talked about the wheels that you can buy. I mean, just go on Amazon or Etsy or wherever, and they sell those stickers where it's a big feelings wheel with like 60-something different feelings. I use the How We Feel app on my phone, and it checks in with me a couple times a day. And it says, how are you feeling? And then it has me pick a quadrant of like high energy positive, high energy negative, low energy positive, low energy negative. And then I can sort of zero in on exactly what the word is for what I'm feeling. And I hope it's helping. I think it's an important thing. It's an important skill to develop, to be able to just check in and say, okay, here's what I'm dealing with right now. Here's how I'm feeling about it. And it really is the first step, getting the great quote by Dr. Glover in No More Mr. Nice Guy is, 2 kinds of feelings make nice guys uncomfortable: theirs and other people's.
Yeah, another way to practice that is through some of the guided meditation apps that are out there. So Calm, and they talk about labeling the thoughts that you're having, and also labeling some of the feelings that you might have. And they start usually with different parts of your body. So, they might have you focus on something you're not really paying attention to, like your big toe, and you're sitting there quiet, you got your eyes closed, and they'll say, hey, let's zero in on, your feet, and what are your toes feeling, and is it tingling? Is it painful? Let's label that, and that's a good way to start.
Yeah, I like that. We got some yard maintenance going on outside. I doubt they'll be able to hear it. I mean, because
all right.
Usually you can't hear my air conditioner, which is right over my head in my.
I guess we'll see if you hear the weed whacker guys.
I'm worried more about the quality of my microphone than yours, but we'll see. I'm not going to worry about it.
All right.
I was thinking that when bringing it back to attraction, and the next little unit that we're going to get into here is anxiety fuels attraction. And again, this could be very easily misunderstood. One of his quotes here: women don't respond to safety and security with happiness, loyalty, and affection. In reality, when a woman feels safe and secure, she's more likely to pull away, create unnecessary drama, get bored, and lose interest. I disagree in that. How would she define safety and security versus how is he defining it, and how are we, the readers, defining it? Because I have a feeling that safety and security, defined in the mind of a woman, the way he's talking about it, is more like boredom and routine and monotony.
Yeah, not safety and security. I think that's not accurate.
Yeah, like I'm sure that the women who date the guys who are at the top of their field in MMA are not like, oh, I'm so bored of going out with this guy who could easily protect me from any threat that occurs. I'm going to cause some unnecessary drama. I'm going to pull away from him. And again, this is completely in a vacuum, independent of what else the other guy's got going on and how else he behaves. But just the idea of, oh, this guy makes me feel physically safe and protected, and I'm bored of that. It's wearing on me.
Right.
No, that's not what happens.
No.
The safety and security that I think he's talking about is, a guy who doesn't take any risk, doesn't do anything exciting, doesn't have any passions,
predictable,
excited about,
does the same thing all the time,
always calls her, texts her the same time of the day, every day, more because of his anxiety, not for her. I mean, it's all about when you're doing things to take anxiety and discomfort out of your own life. To an outside observer who still spends a lot of time with you, that looks a lot like boring.
Yeah.
And boring is not attractive.
Right. I mean, think about this. As kids, if we were told what we're getting for Christmas, right? Like how exciting would Christmas Eve actually be?
Yeah, as great as the thing we receive might be, it's still not going to feel the same as being surprised by something not quite as great.
Santa doesn't send a letter back and go, "Oh, okay, here are the things you're getting." Right. And so I think, the most fun things and the most enjoyment we get out of are things that are unknown. And that doesn't mean that it is not safe or secure. You can do things that are unknown and not feel like you are at risk of your safety or security, right?
Yeah, and I think, it comes down to the guy who is at his girl's beck and call all the time, she knows she always gets to pick when they eat, where they eat, how they eat. He's always available if, she needs him to come over and, take a look at the toilet that keeps running or whatever. And I'm not saying say no to those things and make yourself unavailable as some game so that she doesn't take you for granted and feel that you're too safe and boring. What I'm saying is have a life where you're focusing on your own important stuff, that you're not constantly barraging her with your availability and the fact that you have nothing else going on in your life except being her boyfriend.
Right. And by just agreeing with whatever she's suggesting, you are then basically becoming her. You are not becoming you are not made
redundant.
Right. That's a great point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because now it's why does she need you there? You're just a pain in the ass to bring along. If she's the one coming up with the ideas for this vacation or this meal or this date or whatever, maybe you're there to keep her company, but if you're not offering anything of value in terms of coming up with your own ideas once in a while or a difference of opinion once in a while, and you're living together, you're spending, almost every day together, at what point then is there any type of difference? There's no comparison. There's nothing to differentiate. Yeah, exactly.
Two North Pole magnets pushing each other away from each other.
So. They say sunshine, rainy days are necessary, so you appreciate the sunny ones more, right? You need to have the, a yin and yang. You have to have some sort of difference in order to really, I feel, appreciate the other thing of whatever that is. And then, of yourself too. So, maybe she wants steak and, you really push for seafood and then you go at seafood. And then when she finally has steak, maybe she appreciates it a little bit more than if she had gone, didn't go for the seafood for that first date with you, whatever. Right.
In all the time that I've known you and you've come to me excited about a new girl that you've met, not a single time have you said, Charles, she's great. She's exactly like me. That's not what we're attracted to. As much as we should love ourselves and appreciate what makes us unique, nobody ever gets excited. I met a girl and she acts exactly like I do and says everything that I say. That is not what I'm looking for, and I don't think that's not what they're looking for either.
Having some things in common,
right?
Absolutely,
yes. But the idea that we never disagree on anything, we never have a different preference, we never would rather watch this and we never rather eat something different.
Well, part of that too is because I really like learning from other people.
Exactly. I like trying new food. I like watching TV
introduce
shows.
me to something else that you've been living your experience in your unique life and have a fingerprint of your unique life for years and years and years. And we all have that. So I enjoy particularly learning from somebody, them sharing their experiences and everything else. And so, why would I want something where I look in the mirror and I'm like, oh yeah, I've already been here, done that.
Right. And every time somebody introduces you to a new movie or new TV show or whatever, there's an opportunity cost there. It's like, I could be laying in my bed alone watching reruns of Star Trek The Next Generation, but no, I decided to watch her favorite movie instead, and I really enjoyed it. And, if we're both laying in bed watching Star Trek The Next Generation, yes, that would be perfect, but it's not going to happen.
But then it's slightly different because normally it's just you in bed watching, right? So let's be fair here. Okay.
All right. Okay. So, now that we've corrected his definition of safety and security, there was something else. I did want to ask you a little bit about, I feel like I haven't read or done much consumption of Dr. Glover's material on positive emotional tension.
Yeah.
But I have a strong suspicion that he probably handles this topic a bit in a way that I would find more sensible than this.
Absolutely. He does. It's positive emotional tension. This was an example of negative emotional tension as far as Glover would be concerned.
Okay. So how does he suggest that you bring some excitement, uncertainty,
Great question.
Anxiety maybe into a relationship in a way that's not going to hurt each other.
Yeah. So you plan a date and you say, hey, show up at this time at my house, 7 p.m., wear a little black dress, and, we're going to go out. And you don't tell her where. And, you take her out for a nice dinner. Maybe you go out dancing afterwards, whatever that is, right? You do things where you aren't giving her all of the information up front, but it's a pleasant experience that you both would enjoy, right? So maybe it's a long weekend away. Hey, pack a bag for a weekend, pack your cutest bikini and show up at my door and we're going to go away for the weekend, kind of thing. And so those type of excitement, again, similar to kind of like a kid on Christmas, right? You anticipate something, but it's a positive experience, right? And that would be, what would be a nice surprise? I think if you kind of put yourself in the other person's shoes is what would be kind of a fun surprise that you might enjoy. Right. And that's kind of how I think about it, and, or something like your parents or grandparents would take you on as a little kid and you didn't know all the details ahead of time. And it's just that the absence of some of those details, I think, makes things a little bit more exciting, a little bit more fun.
Yeah. Where Canwell doesn't suggest this specifically, but it feels like he seems to, I would say, gravitate a little more to the pick-up-y side of, the emotional manipulation than Glover does, which is, stuff like post a picture of you and a girl that she doesn't know on your social media and see if she asks you who it is. That kind of nonsense. And I found a new account on Instagram that I really like. I forget the guy's name, but I'll share it on a future episode, where he basically says, I really dislike pretty much all dating coaches because they all seem to come, and then people in his comments said, not everybody, here's some examples. But he said, most dating coaches come from a perspective of, here's how you get someone to do something they don't really want to do. Yeah. And I agree. That does seem to be where most
manipulation.
Most of them come from is, she doesn't want to do this, but if you say these things or do these things, then maybe you can get her to like you or go out with you or give you her number, even though she doesn't really want to. Where the ones that resonate with you and me are the ones who say stuff like, okay, here's how you turn yourself into the kind of person that she's going to want to be around.
Right. Bring value and positive energy and emotions to all of your interactions and with everybody and people will be attracted to that. Yeah. Another idea, right? You maybe, she's coming home from work, you plan, you cook a nice dinner for her or something like that as a surprise. Just like little surprises, things like that. A lot of that is where Glover's talking about that positive emotional tension. Yeah.
Yeah. I like all of those ideas better than I don't know. Does he specifically, that's part of the thing. I don't think he says, here's a thing to do to get the anxiety out of her that will lead to attraction.
No, he says just create anxiety.
Okay. What? You call her up at work and tell her cat died?
Oh, no.
Just kidding. False alarm. Your cat's fine. Just telling some, just telling
come on. No.
Just telling guys to create anxiety and it'll build attraction. My job's done. Good luck. Hope it works out. Come on. That's so irresponsible.
Okay, so are we just forgetting maybe... Does he give examples maybe later on in the book? I don't know.
Anxiety-fueled attraction is like 1 page long. So
yeah. Well, okay. So he does talk about this, and I think Glover also talks about too, is giving space, right? So a couple chapters down, he talks about attraction grows in space. And so one of the elements, and Glover talks about this too, is not being on top of each other, right? Is allowing, is building, both partners building enough of a cake of a life to where you're not on top of each other. You're spending some time out and about doing your own things, and she's spending some time out and about doing her own things. And that is space. And when you have that space, that's where attraction can grow versus, you guys are with each other 24 hours a day.
And I suppose that space could lead to some anxiety, but it should really only be the fleeting thoughts of, I wonder what she's doing. I wonder who she's hanging out with. It shouldn't be things, you shouldn't be in a relationship where you ruminate on stuff like that because you're so insecure or so concerned about her loyalty or anything like that.
Right.
Where either of you, spend time alone and then you immediately kick into anxiety mode.
Yeah. So I think in a healthy relationship, that's not an issue. But if that is one of the concerns from either partner, like what's that person doing? I just had a conversation with a friend the other day where, she's talking about some married couples and that she's friends with, and she wants to go on some girls trips, and the girls don't want to leave their husbands because then it means the guys are going to want to go on a guys trip, and they don't. And she's like, yeah, but you've been happily married for years and years and years, but they still are so concerned that the guy is going to go and do something. And the point my friend make is, if he wants to sleep with somebody else, he doesn't need to go on vacation to do it.
Right.
So I feel like if there's a problem letting that other human being have their freedom in terms of, their own time to spend, with friends, then you're masking a bigger problem in the relationship that needs to be addressed. So that's a trust issue at that point, right? It's different if this is going on 6 out of 7 days a week, you're hanging out with your friends. Right. That's a little extreme, but once a week or once every couple of weeks or going on a girls trip or a guys trip, a couple times a year, I feel like that's a healthy balance. Yeah.
Yeah, I do too. And while, just being apart from the person that you're used to being in close proximity with can be a cause of anxiety, it doesn't need to be anything more than just, I miss them, or I wonder what they're up to, but not, I wonder if they're cheating on me. I wonder if
because now
kids' college money. Stuff like that.
Yeah. It kind of comes down to needing something or somebody versus wanting and appreciating that person or that activity or whatever that is, right? So it comes down to, I think, almost like a dependency. Like I need that person to be there around all the time, and if it's not there, then there's something really wrong. And at that point, I feel like same thing with like drugs or porn or alcohol, whatever, where if you need it to function, otherwise things go off the rails. That's something that needs to be addressed and worked on.
Yeah, and I would say, with the exception of our children, our hypothetical children, neither of us have them, but with the exception of children, we generally don't want to feel like other people need us. We want to feel like other people who are of the same level of attraction, success, value, however you define that, they want us. We don't want to feel like someone needs us, because that automatically puts them at a lower value than ourselves. If somebody, and
it makes you feel bad too, because you start to feel guilty sometimes, right, and obligated now, then, because now you are visibly upsetting the other person because you aren't right there at their beck and call.
Right. Yeah, that's a balance that is a relationship killer, where you want someone and then realize that they need you. And you're like,
or vice versa. I've been on both sides.
I have too. And it is, it's usually neither party is happy in that scenario, and the relationship doesn't last.
And it's very difficult then, I feel like, to work on that, because that requires both people to be really vulnerable. And without like, I think, professional help, I don't know how you could even start to talk about, well, I need you and you only want me, or I feel guilty that you need me, and like that could just get really touchy and really upsetting. Really,
I would
quickly
say a situation like that will require someone to get into 12-step, or both people to get into therapy. I mean, there's bigger interventions than, because as I always say, the two brains that got you into that relationship are not the only resources that will get you out. I mean, it's the same thing I say when people get into, I've had friends with eating disorders, or they've struggled with chemical dependency. It's like the same brain that got you hooked on vomiting after every meal or shooting drugs or whatever. That same brain is not going to be able to get you out of the problem.
No,
that's just not the way it works.
And it's tough to swallow your pride a little bit and go, okay, well, I'm going to go for a therapist or go for professional help. A lot of times we'll go to friends, and unless they're a professional therapist, they might do more damage than help. Actually, if you're getting their opinion,
they'll tell you to go get professional help.
Right. But otherwise, they're just going to weigh in with their 2 cents.
Right.
And now
they're gonna go into fix-it mode on your situation that they don't completely understand, that they don't completely, like even if they could fix it for you, It's not a conversation over drinks at a bar one night with your guy or girlfriends, No, I would say not. I mean, unless, hopefully you do have a group of quality friends where at least one person in that group is going to say, look, I'm sorry you're going through that. If you want to fix it, we're not the people you need to be talking to.
You need to listen to the Mindfully Masculine podcast, and they'll set you straight.
Yes, and the and the mental health professionals that we get kickbacks from that we will refer you to.
Yeah. We got to set that up. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. All right, Dan, we're 59 minutes and 50 seconds in, so I think now's a pretty good time to take a break.
Sounds great, man.
All right, we will talk to you guys next time. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.